Good day, everyone. I am Micah Mingolio, a Bethel Ed HE third year student. Today, I am going to discuss about portfolio assessment. So, before anything else, let us first define what is portfolio assessment. Um, Portfolio assessment is an alternative method in education used in the assessment of the students' group or individual performances. So, portfolio has been used for different purposes. So, to use only one definition of portfolio, it is not possible. Definitions of portfolio may change depending or according to users' purpose or way of usage. With this, many researchers define portfolios to explain its features, the features of portfolio. So, some of these are as follows. First, according to Arthur and Spandel 1991, portfolio is a purposeful collection of student work that exhibits to the students or others their efforts or achievements in one or more area. Then, another researcher that defined portfolio are Paulson and Meyer 1991. They define that portfolio is a purposeful collection of student work that exhibits the student's efforts, progress, and achievement in one or more areas. The collections must include the student's participations in selecting content, the criteria for selections, the criteria for judging merit, and evidence of students' self-reflections. Then another researcher that defines portfolio is Grace 1992. Grace stresses the learning process. So, she defines portfolio that portfolio is a record of the child's process of learning, what the child has learned, and how she was gone about learning, how the child thinks, questions, analyzes, produces, synthesizes, creates, and how she interacts intellectually, emotionally, and socially with others. That was according to Grace 1992. So, with the descriptions and definitions given by the researchers that I mentioned, then portfolio is not either arbitrary collections or observation of students' works to be filled haphazardly. It is important to note that portfolio collection should be purposeful, systematic, and determine criteria, evaluation criteria, and it takes a long period of time. So, with this, portfolio is described as a purposeful and systematic collections of evidence which reflects the success, the performance, and efforts of the students in one or more areas over a period of time. So that is portfolio. Now, we already know what portfolio means. So let's now move on to the organizations of the portfolio content. A portfolio is not a collection of students' work haphazardly over time. Thus, in developing a portfolio, it is important to decide its purpose, the evidence consisting on the portfolio, and its assessment criteria. So, there are factors to be considered in the organizations of the portfolio content. So, first, determining the purpose of the portfolio. Second, determining the evidence including in portfolio. And lastly, determining the assessment criteria. So, let us first discuss determining the purpose of the portfolio. So, the first and most significant act of portfolio preparations is to determine the purpose of portfolio. or the reasons why you are using portfolio as the methods of your assessments of your students' performances. The purpose of portfolio directly affects the process by which the portfolio is created. Also, the purpose of portfolio, it determines what kinds of items should be in it. Explicit purposes prevent the portfolio from becoming busy work. Portfolios can be used in different purposes in educations. The aim of teacher using portfolios is to assess students' progress over a period of time, to determine the efficiency of the teaching, to have a connection to the parents of the students, to evaluate the education program, to enable schools to have contact with the community, and to help students for self-assessment and to determine the student weak points in learning process. During the determining of the purpose of portfolio, it is important for teachers to consult his colleagues, the students, the parents, and the school administrations. It is because in these concerns, it will help to appropriately carry out the portfolio implementations. So that is why the teachers need to seek advice or to consult the students, the parents, his colleagues, or the school administrations before implementing portfolio assessment. Then, the next factors to be considered in the organizations of the portfolio content is determining the evidence including in portfolio. Considering the purpose of portfolio, it should be determined which evidence should be collected, who will collect the works, how often they will be collected, and how they will be assessed. Consulting students during the selections of the studies which will be filled in a portfolio is very much important. It is because it enables students to have responsibility and positions feelings, meaning they will become responsible to make it or compiling it. So it is really need to have it is really need for teachers to consult students during the selections of the studies which will be filled in a portfolio. Then the last factors that need to be considered in the organizations of the portfolio content is determining the assessment criteria. First, the purpose of portfolio is mentioned explicitly. Then, the assessment criteria of the each item in portfolio should be explained. It is very important to determine the assessment criteria or as the criteria for assessing the portfolio. It is because assessment criterion allows students to recognize and select work that is considered best quality. It also allows and encourages discussions among teachers, students, and other concerning persons about the quality of the outcome. Assessment criteria that will be used to determine the quality or the student's performance should be clear and easy to understand. This is quite important because it allows students to determine or to assess his own works and to be able to fulfill his weaknesses. Rubrics should be used in order to determine quality of the evidence and portfolio and to make a reliable and valid assessment. So that is determining assessment criteria. So that is the three factors that need to be considered during the organizations of the portfolio content. Now let's move on to the important points and portfolio developing process. In portfolio developing process, it is challenging situations for teachers to make portfolio an integral part for their instructions. Thus, Autorias 1994 and Defina 1992 made some suggestions to solve these problems and to enable portfolio as an important learning and assessment tools. So some of important points or some suggestions that they suggest are as follows. First, it should be consulted to teachers, students, parents, and school administrations in deciding which items would be placed in it or in the portfolio. Second, it should be created or shared a clear purpose for using a portfolio. Students should clearly understand what purpose of and for whom a portfolio is consisted. Third, it should reflect the actual day-to-day learning activities of the students. Also, items and portfolio should vary and be multidimensional. Then, it should be ongoing so that this shows students' efforts, progress, and achievements over a period of time. Then lastly, items and portfolio should be collected as a systematic, purposeful, and meaningful. So that is the important points in portfolio developing process. So overall, the suggestion tells that in portfolio making process or developing process, there are necessary steps and thus are students' ideas should be taken, each study should have a purpose, assessment of studies should be clearly explained, the process should cover a time period, portfolio should encourage students to learn, and items and the portfolios should be multidimensional and should encourage or address different learning areas. Besides, it is virtually important that the studies in a portfolio should be designed in order to present students' performance and development in an any time period in detail. So, that are the important points of portfolio developing process. Now, let's move on to the assessment of portfolios. So, there has been no exact way or method for the assessment of portfolios. However, some different methods can be used in terms of their aims. First, if the purpose of portfolio is to improve the student's learning and to diagnose his or her learning needs, then the works in the portfolio are usually determined by teachers. So, in this kinds of purpose of portfolio, students are given feedback for his or her works by teachers and peers. And these feedbacks are used to improve the students' learnings. On the other hand, if the purpose of the portfolio is to assess the student's progress over an extended period of time and to provide evidence for grades, then the portfolio contains some standard works for everyone, and the works in the portfolio are selected by students. This portfolio includes the best work of the students in a term or year, and they are assessed by the teachers using the criteria determined before. So that is the second purpose of them. So that is the two methods used to assess portfolios in terms of their purpose. Then there are three identified approaches to grade portfolios. First, to evaluate each piece of work in the portfolio and average those grades to determine the portfolio grade. Then the second approach is to use an analytical scheme where separate grades are given for different performance. So, for example, the teachers might review the portfolio and give grades for every methods or procedures that the students incorporate to solve the problems or doing the activities. For examples, the way they carry out or demonstrate the procedures accurately, and the way they apply mathematics in the problem solving situations. So, unlike the first approach, this approach is based on reviewing several pieces of work in the portfolio. Then, the last approach, which is also termed as focused holistic approach, is about scoring students' work when a single grade or when a single score is determined, focusing on several dimensions of performance. So, this allows teachers to give a single grade for all of the pieces of works contained in the portfolio. For example, the performance attributes of the students, like the way they interpret the students' ability to interpret the problems or the informations and the problems, the way they select and use some appropriate strategies, and the way they evaluate and connect the answers to the given situations. So that is the three identified approaches to grade portfolios. Now, portfolio has many different types. So, this is the personal portfolio, working portfolio, record keeping portfolio, group portfolio, thematic portfolio, and then the integrated portfolio. So, let us first discuss about personal portfolio. Personal portfolio for other students and teachers to view to or to have to form a more holistic view about students and to celebrate their interests. The items may be included from within and outside schools. So this portfolio could contain pictures, awards, videos, and the likes. So, personal portfolio serves as a catalyst for self-reflections and sharing. So, that is the personal portfolio. Then, the next type of portfolio is the working portfolio. Here, the ongoing systematic collections of student work and samples can be exhibit or can be maintained in the working portfolio. So, working portfolio, this is the collections of students' works in a daily, weekly, monthly, or unit work product forms. So, that is the working portfolio. Then, the third type of portfolio is the record-keeping portfolio. This type of portfolio is usually kept by teachers. It contains necessary assessment samples and records that may be required. For example, written exams and proficiency tests. It could also include observational informations like anecdotal notes, frequency index scales, and behavioral checklists, and progress reports that supplements the traditional report card. So that is the record keeping portfolio. Then the next type of portfolio is the group portfolio. Here, each member of a cooperative learning group contributes individual items along with the group items. For example, pictures on community project. It is to demonstrate the effectiveness of the entire group. So that is the group portfolio. Then another type of portfolio is the thematic portfolio. This portfolio would relate to a unit of study with a particular focus. Normally, it lasts up to 2 to 6 weeks. So for examples, if a portfolio is constructed related to rational numbers or first unit, then this portfolio would reflect the affective and cognitive skills of the students and their views about these units. So that is the thematic portfolio. Then the last types of portfolio is the integrated portfolio. So to view the students' works from all disciplines, showing connections between or among subjects from all disciplines would be included in these types of portfolio. Selected items, either required or optional, could be drawn from several or all subjects. So, for example, this portfolio can be prepared in math and science courses. So that is the integrated portfolio. So that is the types of portfolios. Now, let's talk about what are the benefits and the advantages of using portfolio assessment methods for teachers, parents, and students. So, these are the advantages of using portfolio assessment method. First, portfolio provides multiple ways of assessing students' learning over time. The next, it provides a more realistic evaluations of academic content than the pencil and paper test. Then another advantage of using portfolio assessment method is that it allows students, parents, teachers, and staff to evaluate students' strengths and weaknesses. Another one is it provides multiple opportunities for observations and assessment. Then it provides also an opportunity for students to demonstrate their strength as well as weaknesses. It also encourages them to develop some abilities needed to become independent or self-directed learners. So, overall, with the advantages that I've mentioned, portfolio assessment provides authentic and valid assessment of students' achievements and comprehensive views about students' performances and context. And it encourages learners to develop independent and self-directed learners. It also enhances their communications among teachers, parents, and students. Then it also provides opportunities for learners to demonstrate their strength as well as weaknesses and for teachers to direct their teaching. It also encourages students to take responsibility for their own learning and enhance the students' teachers' communications. In addition, portfolio assessment has a potential to demonstrate students' learning process and learning product over time. So, as a result, portfolio gives details information about students' development in learning process to teachers, parents, and to students themselves. So that is the benefits and advantages of using the portfolio assessment methods. So although using portfolio assessment has a lot of benefits and advantages in education, it has also some disadvantages and burdensome. Thus, when the portfolios develop and used, disadvantages and burdens should be considered. So here are the problems and disadvantages of using portfolio assessment methods. First, scoring a portfolio may be seen as less viable and fair than the multiple test scores. Then second, it is very time consuming for teachers to score students' work and to assess students' performance over time in the crowded classrooms. And third, it is difficult to store, to handle, and to control the portfolios in the crowded classrooms. So, to cope with this, problems and possible limitations or disadvantages of using portfolio assessment methods, it is best for teachers who tend to use this type of assessment method to become educated, to be assisted and supported by experts who are expert in using the portfolio application process. It is because it will make the portfolio implementation become successful and effective. So teachers should not be ashamed in asking help with the experts in the portfolio implementation process or in using the portfolio assessment method. So that's all about portfolio assessment. I hope you learned something from the discussions. Thank you.